All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, so firstly, we're going to look at our abstract and what it really entails. What is our project really about? So firstly, we observed that there was a tendency towards subject silos in the STEAM lesson planning and instruction, where the disciplines were presented independently. But we strongly believe that there should be a balance in the STEAM approach with arts, as well as the robust application of STEM subjects, where there's some cohesiveness. We don't believe it should be viewed separately. So in doing so, we have created a complete series of lesson plans that and resources that will aid or that will reflect that vision that we have. All right, so on to our next slide. We're doing this presentation in a lesson format. So we're using the strategy, the KWL. And some of these strategies you'll see in our toolkit as well. All right, so firstly, what do you know about STEAM? We want to first to make sure that everyone has an understanding of what STEAM is, because we have identified that there's a challenge. We'll look for that where most science teachers or educators or even stakeholders are not really aware or fully educated on what STEAM is. I'm going to allow my team member Lemon to give us a brief overview of what STEAM entails, because his institution, Swaliga, is heavy on STEAM components, and that is why we saw it fit to adopt that approach as opposed to just STEM. All right, you can go ahead, Lemon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gabrielle. And thank you for that wonderful poem too. That was dope. So yeah, really quickly, we want this to be an interactive session. So we're doing this as a lesson plan, as Gabrielle stated. So we want to hear from you. If you want to type in the chat, you can share your answers. We're definitely monitoring the chat. If you want to share, we want to hear from you. What do you know about STEAM, or what do you consider STEAM to be? And of course, we're talking about the acronym for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So I'll give everyone about 30 seconds. Would love to hear from you. If you could type in the chat, share your thoughts. We're here to learn and discuss, so there's no right or wrong answer. Okay, I already see one coming in the chat. Lenny Castro says, an integration of subject areas. I like that. It says STEAM is an integration of subject areas. We'll give a couple more seconds if anybody else would like to share. We would love to hear from you. Again, I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Lamont Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of the Swaliga Foundation based here in Washington, D.C. Excellent. I see a few more comments coming in. Felix says, start from doing, discovery. Yes. Subject integration, says Prudence. Deepening learning, real world. You must forgive me, I have to brush up on my Spanish, but it looks like a great comment here, la articulación de estas áreas de un determinado momento. STEAM is
the articulation of the areas in any determined moment.
Yes, thank you, Allison, what she said. Okay, great. So I see some more comments coming in. We're gonna add these to our chart for what we know. Thank you for sharing that. Learning using different strategies. Excellent. Okay, now lastly, before we move, I want to know, what do you want to know about STEAM and about our project? So if you could just briefly add that, then we will complete our KWL chart. And I'm gonna add some of these comments to the no side of our chart. But I'm curious, this will help guide our presentation. If you could share, if anybody has any questions maybe about STEAM or about how we developed this project, we would love to hear from you so that we can share. Okay, Lenny says, how were you inspired? Someone says, what does your foundation do? Okay. Excellent. Louisa says, how can I be a part of STEAM? Excellent question. Excellent, excellent. Elisa has a wonderful comment. Allison, if you could help me out with that one.
Sure. 1 second. As the questions come in, my screen keeps disappearing. The question. It says, "Oh, stop moving." 1 second. Let me copy paste it so it doesn't disappear again. It says, integrating la forma de aprender, the forms of the different ways of learning science, mathematics, engineering, and technology.
Got it. Excellent, excellent. Integrating core concepts, processes, and skills, everyday problems and issues around us in our homes, environments, and communities. How to integrate STEAM? Now, that's an excellent question, Janice, as well, because that's the core of one of the challenges that we're having right now, even in Washington, D.C. As we're moving more into the virtual space, the question becomes, well, how do we seamlessly integrate STEAM into our lessons? And more importantly, how do we make it engaging? How do we keep our students engaged in what we are trying to teach them? Okay, so thank you. These responses are excellent. Please continue to keep the chat active. We will be monitoring that and looking for more questions and more feedback from you. We have some great responses. Thank you for sharing. Now,
the final Spanish one, Lamont, is how to use STEAM in virtual classrooms during these days of the pandemic.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Yes, how do we use STEAM in the virtual space? So I'm gonna briefly share part of a video that was developed as a training module. And here you'll get to see a firsthand look of what one of our sessions looks like when Swaliga is conducting a STEAM lesson. And then we'll talk about it in a brief moment. Here we go. Okay. Yo. Okay. One time, that's the end of the class. Hope you have fun. We had to learn real fast. Depending on the group, we generally try to tailor our activity to make sure that it's fitting their learning style. A lot of the young people that we serve come from impoverished communities. But one of the biggest tools that we use is the arts. Had to get the space tape, but it got dry. Across the board, the arts are able to really communicate in a way that really crosses generational, socioeconomic boundaries and things like that, and allows us to connect and really get to a place that they don't necessarily get to tap into in school.
An important part of out-of-school time learning is helping everyone feel like they belong. This is true for STEM activities also. Watch as Lamont uses a song to break the engineering process down into steps that are accessible and fun for you.
Who remembers the engineering design process? What's the D stand for? What's the D stand for? Define. Define. Yeah, first we define the problem, right? What's the I? Imagine. Yes. Imagine, we brainstorm. What is the V? You almost said it. Vision, yes. What's the first E after we get our vision? Execute. Execute. And after we execute our plan, what's the last E? Yes. And what's enhance mean? To improve or make something better. Somebody say divvy divvy what? Divvy divvy what? Say divvy divvy who? Divvy divvy who? Say divvy divvy what? Divvy divvy what? Say divvy divvy you? Divvy divvy you? The word engineering can be intimidating. What we do, we made it into a song. So the initial lesson, right? If I'm working with a new group of learners, and I want them to understand that what we're doing is engineering, I start with going through the process. The goal is to get them to remember it, so I don't have to say it again. And we do that by presenting them with the acronym. We use DIVI. And this is based on the same process that the engineers at NASA are using every day. It's a 5-step process, DIVEE, and then we get into our chant, divvy what, divvy who, divvy what, divvy who, and then they start to kind of disassociate it with it just being engineering. And I really am intentional about telling them, hey, like this is just a process. You can use this here in our activities, or if you're having a problem or something that you're trying to solve outside of this, think about this process and think about how you're going to get to a solution. Okay. All right. Thank you for watching that video. Now, the important thing that I want to pull out of that, this was a group of learners that we were working with, and we're teaching them the engineering design process. Now, a little bit about myself. I studied architectural engineering at Drexel University. And when I came back to Washington, D.C., I saw the disparity of the lack of those skills, engineering and science skills. Now, me being a music artist, we wanted to develop a way or an approach to introduce these concepts to our learners in a very informal way. And I think that's the most important thing that I can share with you from that video. Even if you're not a music artist, even if you don't have a degree in science, you can still be an effective STEAM educator by presenting that same information that you know that your students have to learn in a way that is less intimidating for them. So the power of the arts is what I'm getting at. We have to understand that these young people are interacting with art, music, visuals, pictures all day, every day, and that's what stimulates them. So we have to present it in a way that is digestible for them. Now I'm going to turn it over to my team members so that we can get into our project and discuss what is the problem. Where did we start from? Gabrielle.
All right. All right. Thank you, Lemons. As you can see, you were very much tuned into what was going on in Lemon's classroom. But that is different for a lot of classrooms in Jamaica and around the world. The content is presented in a way that is not attractive. It's very rigid, and the students are not active participants within the class. STEM students have to be engaged. They have to be actively participating within a lesson. If that's not shown, STEM is not highlighted there. So first of all, we're looking at the problem that we are solving and why. So what would have happened is that we realized that after sharing our curricula with each other, we realized that there was a deficiency in Brittney's, that is one of our team members. She's a grade 2 teacher, and the curriculum that she uses in her DC school was lacking in STEM components. And after being inspired by what Swaliga was doing and based on the overview that Lemon gave us on how students were learning and how the STEAM was very much enhancing the teaching and learning experience there, we were very much inspired to adopt that that A in the STEAM and put it in the STEM, because we have heard about the STEM, but the STEAM in Jamaica, arts is not really within the school system. Arts is downplayed. So for the students who seem to have a higher level of understanding, they tend to do the sciences, the business, the language, humanities, and so on. But for the arts, it's very much downplayed. And we see, based on Swaliga's approach, how the A in the STEAM very much adds value, or it takes STEAM to the next level. So after seeing that lack of cohesiveness within Brittney's lessons or her curriculum, because there were no objectives, there were just standards, there was no content given to the teachers at this school, they were just given topics and standards. So we saw it beneficial to create a toolkit that will enhance the teaching and learning experience, not just for Brittney, but for teachers all around, because we have realized that many teachers experience the same challenge in using STEM. One other thing we realize is that a lot of the times why teachers are not using the STEM or incorporate or highlighting those standards in their lessons is because they weren't properly educated on what STEAM or STEM is about. So they just stick to the traditional way of doing a lesson. So they just start with the introduction to their lesson. They start with giving the notes. They're very much demonstrating, but it is lacking. And we see where students are just not engaged in the lesson. We can go to the next slide, Lemon. All right, so we just discussed why. So what we plan on doing, this toolkit very much provides tools, and it also includes pedagogical practices that will aid in the science teachers' lesson planning and delivery. All right, so not just lesson plans are a part of this toolkit, but also best practices, because we all, by one of our goals in this project is to also forge a collaboration. Lemon shared with us his way of teaching and how Swaliga uses STEAM to enhance learning. And I was very much inspired and wish to use that in my lessons as well, right? So forging a collaboration, in doing so, we can share best practices and provide that as in a manual that all teachers can have access to it and also adopt those strategies and best practices. Our toolkit would be, oh, you can go back one sec, Lemon, yeah. Yeah, and we know that in doing so, we don't want to rob from the robust content, because you have teachers that, yes, might use songs and so on in the classroom, but it lacks content. Students are not taking anything away from the song. It's just very much singing and, playful content and so on. So in doing so, the strategies will increase problem solving, and it will also increase creative and critical thinking skills. And that is what STEM or STEAM is about. I can go to the next slide, Lemon. So what is the goal of our toolkit?
So this is another portion where we want to hear from you. We want to make sure that you're understanding the purpose. And again, this is an emergent toolkit that is meant to be a resource. So we want to ask you, what is the goal of our toolkit? Based upon what you just seen and what Gabrielle was explaining was the problem that we saw in working with one of our team members who is a teacher in Washington, D.C. We asked the question, what is the goal of our toolkit? Now, as you can see, the goal of our toolkit is to bridge the gap between the traditional and STEM approach by creating STEAM lessons that will forge a collaboration among teachers from different subject areas. Okay, so one of the most important things in enhancing STEAM learning for our students is making sure that we have the proper tools and the proper connections to engage not only with our students in a meaningful way, but to collaborate with other teachers. Because I think that's an important component that really makes a difference as well.
To add to that, Lemon, I don't know if we shared this, but we all are from different subject areas. So Brittney is a science teacher. I am a math teacher. So even in our own project, we're doing somewhat STEM collaboration.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that made our partnership and working together even that much stronger, because everyone has their own expertise area, right? Everyone has different skills. But when we're talking about STEAM holistically, that has to include all of those skills, okay? Because we want our students not to just think in silos, because real life doesn't work like that, right? One problem would require you to do math, to do engineering, right? To do something creative. So we want them to begin to think and use those parts of their brain at the same time. So I'm gonna advance the slide here. Okay, so here I can talk a little bit more about the toolkit, our product, what we created. Now, this teacher toolkit is specifically for STEAM educators. That means that it's not for math teachers. It's not for science teachers. Okay, it's for STEAM educators. Now, you may be wondering what is the difference, but this toolkit consists of lesson plans, additional resources, strategies centered around the STEAM approach. Okay, so I saw some of the questions earlier when we were asking, what do you want to know? A lot of people were asking, well, how do we integrate STEM into our classroom? Someone says, how can I be a part of STEAM? And I also see strategies to implement STEAM at the preschool level. Okay, and these are all great questions. Now, this toolkit is just a part of the answer, but what I want to stress again, these strategies that we're talking about are simple things that you can do immediately in your classroom. And I'll give you the first one. If you notice, during the video that we watched, we started with a song. Now, I'm a music artist, so my style is doing like a call and response, like divvy divvy what, divvy divvy who. If you are not a music artist, that's perfectly fine. This toolkit has songs and music in it that you would be able to use in your classroom. And another thing that we try to do is switch up the style. So it's not always hip hop. Sometimes it might be merengue. Sometimes it might be classical. Sometimes it might be jazz or reggae. But the point is that playing music automatically changes the learning environment. Okay. And it also stimulates the brain. Research shows that as music is playing, different parts of the brain are stimulated. And we do that because when we're talking about science or some of these more dense subjects, we want to first control the environment and the emotions of the classroom. Okay. And that's part of being an effective STEAM educator, because we want them to disassociate it with this complex information that we're trying to teach them. So you can do something as simple as playing music, even in a virtual space, which you'll hear later. If you're on a Zoom call, if you're in a digital space with your students, I implore you to play music, okay? And make sure that you're connecting with what your students want to hear as well, which is super important. So this is a part of the ingredients in this toolkit that we created that just, we wanted to provide something that was packed with resources that teachers could use immediately. So another question, how can others access the curriculum? So we'll be providing more details about that, but this toolkit will be available online. We do intend to make it available online. The video that we watched earlier is actually on swaligafoundation.org. I can share the link in the chat if anyone would like to see that video. We have others, and these are meant to be resources for teachers as well. So this toolkit, we want accessible to everyone that is interested in using it. Okay, now a quick check for understanding. Gabrielle, if you would like to read that question, I'll monitor the chat. Simple multiple choice.
Definitely. All right. So the question asks, what product are we creating? Who can answer? What is the product? Are we creating a science book? Are we creating a pedagogical toolkit, a mathematics manual, a lesson plan? All right, so I'm seeing B's. I'm seeing a lot of B's in our chat, Lemon.
I see that. I like it. I like it. Excellent. All right. So you are correct. If you said B, you get 1,000 points and 2 thumbs up.
There we go.
Yes, the product is a pedagogical toolkit.
All right.
So we'll advance the slide. I see a few comments that I wanted to pull out. Someone says Kahoot has music too.
Yeah,
Excellent point.
Go with that.
We love using Kahoot. For those that don't know, it's a learning platform that allows you to do quizzes in the form of a game. Great way to get information from your students. Another one says, How do you do activities with kids with different abilities? I love that question. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So when we say kids with different abilities, we've had students in our classroom that have been diagnosed with autism, or that may have dyslexia, or may have been diagnosed with other learning disabilities. And that is another reason why the arts are so important. And I'll give one quick example. A student in our class who was in the 3rd grade, who had been diagnosed with autism, was struggling in some of his other classes. When he came into our class and we were doing a very similar lesson on engineering, I assigned him a leadership role. And what I mean by that, instead of just having him participate in the lesson in a normal way, I saw that he was interested in taking pictures. Okay. So what we do is have him become our photographer. We have a digital camera, not just a cell phone, which would work well in the same manner. You could use a cell phone, but we have a digital camera that I showed him how to use. And I was just like, hey, if you can take pictures as we're learning, then we can use those and talk about them later. He was super excited, very engaged, was taking pictures during the lesson. And then that made him even want to join the others and start building. And what we did was take his pictures and we talked about them as a group later. So that made him feel included. That made him focus on the process, because he's taking pictures, but he's still focusing on the building process. And that's the whole point. We want them to understand the process in whatever way is comfortable for them, whether they have to draw pictures of it, whether they have to sing a song about it, whether they take pictures of it. I think when you have students that have different developmental needs, it's very important to just kind of watch and observe and give them an opportunity to show you how they would like to engage with the lesson. And that can be very difficult. That's not an intuitive thing, but it is very doable. Okay, it's very doable. And I implore you again to use the arts as your resource. Okay, now let's move along, because I do want to be mindful of time. Objective 1.3, the audience will be able to know how people can use our work. And we've talked a little bit about this. The lesson plans will be tested in various classrooms. That's where we are in the process. One of our teammates, Brittney, as we mentioned, who is an elementary primary school teacher in Washington, D.C., will now be using some of these lesson plans in her classroom. And she's still teaching virtually. Washington, D.C. public schools are still not in the building yet. So this will really put our toolkit to the test. She's going to have to do these lesson plans with a young group of learners, teaching them about science. So we're going to take that feedback from the students, the feedback from Brittney as an educator, and we're going to go and make sure that our toolkit is addressing these needs, because that is the easiest way to tell if it's effective, right? We want to get feedback from the students to see if they not only understood the content, but secondly, if they were engaged, if they enjoyed the lesson. So we'll be continuing our research to see if that's effective. Gabrielle, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, not at the moment. Let me see. So the thing with STEAM focuses also on the robust content in science. So it's not just looking at the arts, but all components being cohesive. So it's not, it will definitely meet the needs of diverse learners. So that is the beauty of STEAM.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, now we're getting to the nitty gritty. We want to hear from you. What did you learn? Okay, what did you learn? And I'll be monitoring the chat. Allison, I saw your comment, and I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat about whether or not this will be made available and translated into Spanish. The answer is yes. We are still still working on that, but with the help of our partners, at ITEN and OAS and others. I'm sure we will be
To
completing
put us
that.
into fruition, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely, because that's super important, right? For these resources to be
Yeah.
accessible, we definitely will make sure that they are made available in Spanish as well. Excellent. Just reading comments as they come in. Again, we want to hear from you. What did you learn? What did you see that stood out to you? What did you hear that you took away from this? I'm reading someone says movement is also an important part of STEAM. Simple example, looking at types of chemical reactions in chemistry, had students choreograph a dance used with poetry, paintings to depict concepts. Sorry, didn't include all participants. Excellent comment. Thank you. Yes, movement. Our kinetic learners would love to hear that. Even if you can in the virtual space, we have our students step away from the screen for a second. We say, all right, everybody get up. We're going to do 10 jumping jacks, or if you can figure out a way to relate it back to your lesson, right? Like if you're talking about air pressure, for example, air pressure moves from high to low. So we'll say, all right, jump once and then, get down really low, but something that will get them up out of their chair, get their blood flowing is definitely recommended because you got to try to understand. It's hard enough for our students to sit still in a classroom, but now we're asking them to sit at home in their own environment and stare at a screen. It becomes difficult. So great comment about the movement. Excellent. Okay, I see another comment. Love your approach. So inviting and engaging. I'm not musical at all, but I see the immense benefit. Yes. Thank you for that. Again, you do not have to be a music artist to be an effective STEAM teacher. Okay, it's really more just about being open. I learned about Divi and that the STEAM approach has to be balanced. Yes, very important to be balanced. I learned about Le Mans organization. I have been using STEAM for years, just did not call it that. Yep. Most of my students were boys, so they need to learn by involving the arts. My classes are upbeat. Thanks for the approach. Yes, excellent, excellent. Love that. And then someone says, you have to incorporate all learning styles within STEAM. Yes, that is so important.
Definitely.
Absolutely. As we mentioned earlier, STEAM is all of these subjects presented at one time. But the cool part of the approach is that we're addressing all different learning styles at the same time, whether it be kinetic, auditory. All of these things are super important, and just knowing your students. And I know a lot of educators that may be watching this in the virtual space, you may not have even met your students in person, which is a whole nother challenge.
Challenge.
Yeah, because forming that bond is an important part of that approach, right? Giving them the space to feel comfortable and sharing with you music that they like or ways that they want to learn is a part of forming that bond so that you can get the most out of them. Now, in the virtual space, that becomes a lot more difficult, but again, it's really just about asking those important questions.
Mhm. I also want to add, Lemon, the STEAM doesn't restrict. It doesn't have a restriction where it's just limited to just the teacher creating these songs or these resources, these creative tools for students to learn. We also give students the opportunity to create their own songs, to create their own game, their own poems, so that the number one aim is to have students being active learners within the classroom. So that's another plus when it comes on to STEAM.
Thank you for saying that, Gabrielle. I'm so glad that you added that piece because that is so important. And that is in the toolkit, the approach on how to do that, how to pull that out of your students. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about why you don't have to be a music artist, because I guarantee the learners and the young people that you're working with, they have immense talent. even if they don't know it yet. Your job as an educator, our job is to help pull that out of them. Okay.
Another misconception, persons, when they hear the arts, they're just thinking about music. I know that we saw in the example, Lemon uses music as one way of engaging his class and also as a way of assessing and delivering a lesson. But there are the arts and the humanities is very wide, and there are so many modalities we can use to bring across a lesson. It can be the arts. Like even when I was teaching sets the other day, I have the students finding creative ways of creating their Venn diagrams and so on. So it's not just limited to music and having to write poetry and so on. Just having a free space where students can be creative thinkers and critical thinkers as well.
Yes, critical thinkers. And we're now at the stage of if anybody has any other questions, we're definitely keeping an eye on the chat. We're wrapping up. We got a couple minutes left. But that is an important point that you just made, Gabrielle, critical thinkers. I think that is probably one of the other things that I would want to stress to anybody trying to integrate STEAM into your classroom. What I had to learn even in engineering, I don't remember all of the formulas, all of the equations that I learned in engineering school, but I learned how to think critically. And that's been the most valuable thing that we try to give to our students. Because if we can train them to be better problem solvers, it doesn't matter what subject that they're approached with, right? They can then use that knowledge that they've gained and how to solve problems and apply it to that. And that's one of the most important things about teaching true STEAM education is getting them to get to the root of the problem and be able to develop a solution. And that's going to be something that they use well after school as they move forward and progress in life. Okay, we have a couple of questions. Are you interested in piloting your toolkit in any other locations? I would be interested in formal and informal environments. The answer is yes, absolutely. So our information is on the screen right now. Please feel free to send us an email. We would love to hear from you. If you have any questions after this, if you would like to make sure that you have access to the toolkit, please let us know. We want this to be a resource and we want it to continue to grow and get better. And that's why we're asking for feedback from you on how we can improve for our learners. Great question. I see another comment here in Spanish. I only know un poquito, so I would need assistance.
I can translate that for you. So it says, I love to sing and dance with my students, and they also really love it. It's a great way to interact with them. I'm a teacher in middle education, so probably middle school. And I use it a lot for my last periods, especially when they're tired and they don't respond as well. So they respond better, when they're tired to singing and dancing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, Sylvia. Yes. Music and dancing does wonders. It injects a certain type of energy into your lesson that makes it a lot easier for everyone. And again, if it's fun for you, if you're enjoying it, then they're gonna have fun. That's usually my litmus test. If we're writing a lesson plan or something like that, if I'm enjoying it, if it's fun for me, then I know that my students will probably enjoy it. So yeah, playing music and dancing, strongly encouraged. And as we wrap up here, I'm gonna play a quick song that I created called Energy that is infused with different concepts around physics. So the basic universal law, energy in, energy out, something that I studied in engineering school that these students now probably won't be doing physics, but that type of basic concept, if they can understand that at an earlier age, will bridge the gap and make it that much easier when they get to that point. And these are the types of songs that will be included in our toolkit. And another cool thing, if you play a song like this for your students, hopefully it will inspire them. And you can say, well, these are the vocabulary words that are in this song. How would you make a rap about energy? Or how would you teach another student about energy. Okay, like all of these things are strategies that you can use to help enhance what you're already doing, which I'm sure is great. Okay, cool. So again, we will be making this available. Please, you have our information. If you have any other questions after this, we would be glad to answer them or shed any light. Which I make Gabrielle, did you have any other?
Oh yeah, I'm seeing a question that's asking, can STEM be used to teach special needs children?
The answer is absolutely yes. And that varies. As you know, everyone has different needs, and there is a spectrum when you say special needs children. But the answer is yes. And I think it going back to the story that I shared earlier with the young man who was interested in photography, and his mom actually commented when she came back into the room and saw that he was working the camera. She commented and said that I've never seen him be that engaged in school, right? This is a kid that is super bright, you know, what was diagnosed with a learning disability with autism, but still has different skills and talents that just needed to be awakened. And she said that even after that lesson, he became more interested in taking pictures. Okay, he would ask for the phone to take pictures, and that was just one example of just figuring out how to figure out what your learners are most interested in. What is it that gets them excited? Because there's something, I don't know if it's video games or what, but something is getting them excited when they're not in the classroom, and that's what we need to use to bridge the gap. But I just want to say thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for having us. We hope that this was beneficial. We hope that this was eye-opening and that this resource can be used however you see fit. Gabrielle, did you have anything you wanted to add before we close out?
You said it perfectly, Lemon. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this journey, and we are very excited and can't wait to put our toolkit into action. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm going to share this song really fast so we can rock out on our way out. And I hope everyone has a great weekend and a great rest of your day. Here we go. Can you hear that?
Yeah, we're hearing it.
You'll say you a beast for this one. Steam the blood. Energy out. It's the energy, energy out. For life. Yeah, you got it for life. Swaliga, baby. Yeah, we do this for life. Yeah, we need this for life. You say energy, Equal energy out. I'm like, energy out. It's the energy, Equal energy out. Pick the energy, that could take many forms. We'll talk about it later. First, I hip you to the norms. Two main types of energy: the real go-getters and the ones who pretend to be. Differences all in your mental. If you don't go plant the seed, you just got potential. Like a plane sitting on top of a hill, that's all potential energy standing still. Now imagine that versus you rolling down that hill and knowing exactly where you headed. Even if you don't know, at least you moving, that's kinetic. Energy to fly, converted from heat and work. Your energy, the only thing that's been free from birth and for life. Yeah. I said you got it for life. Yeah, we do this for life. That's why nigga, baby, we need this for life. Yeah, you say it's that energy, it's that energy out. Energy out. It's that energy, energy out. Energy out. It's that energy, equal energy out. Energy out. It's that energy, energy out. Energy out. If you don't know by now, we do this for a living. Here to sting your block in your city or your kitchen, putting energy into these words where they hit your system. They come out your speaker. All right, I'm gonna fade it right there.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you both so much. Thank you, team. This was excellent. I'm so grateful for all the hard work you guys have put into this and for the message you're sharing. I think it's really important for people to recognize that STEM is wonderful, but just like being human, you can't live without food and with water, or vice versa. You got to have both. So it's good to know that we need to have some arts included in our science for those learners who really need that aspect in their life in order to connect these themes and all of this, all of the knowledge and content that we need to just live better lives and be better humans. So thank you guys so much. That was incredible. I'm going to go ahead and we've got to get closed up here because we've got our final session starting here in just 4 moments. When I say session, I mean our closing session. There will be some comments from ITEN and from some OAS representatives. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you just to show you some final things. And I do want to encourage you all, if you have not already, please put your, share your contact information. Gabrielle and Lamont, if you're willing to do so as well, share your contact information, keep in touch. I know there were a couple of people in the chat who had mentioned wanting to be able to get in touch with you all to collaborate. So some great things, connections being made here and some really great networking opportunities. I think in this field, we all have to support one another and be willing to really think outside the box, especially during times of a pandemic. So having people here in these sessions, you know, we've got over 100 participants from over 30 different countries, and I think we can all learn from one another. So it's a fantastic opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and close everything out now. So this Zoom will stay open. So please do stay and listen to our final comments starting here in just a few minutes at 1 o'clock. And when we're finished, if you'd like to go back into GatherTown, you can close out of the Zoom and go back to the GatherTown link. And please feel free to roam around and look at all of the posters, and that platform will still be open throughout the rest of the day and into the evening. So please do go in, look at all the content, make connections, and reach out to us at ITEN if you have any questions or need any further support. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Gabby and Lamont, for such an excellent presentation, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday afternoon, everyone.
You too. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Allison. Thank you, everyone.
Good job, Lamond. Good job, Gabby. Love it.
Love it.
Thank you, Dr. Devonish.